Hey, and thank you for joining us today. In today's episode, we are diving into the world of content marketing and its crucial role in local search. Specifically, we'll explore the topic of content marketing for local search. Why is strategy content's best friend? I'm Ian, and I'll be your host today. And joining me is our resident marketing experts, Ken and Paul. So, guys, thanks for joining us today. As small businesses navigate the increasingly competitive online market, it's essential to understand the power of content marketing and how it can amplify their local search presence. So, in this episode, our plan is that we're going to unravel why a strategic approach to content marketing is the best friend. So, strategy is the best friend of content marketing to be successful at local search marketing. So, Ken, let's start unraveling this topic by asking you a question.
Okay.
Why is having a strategy important for local creation, content creation, and for your marketing efforts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, having a strategy does a lot of things for you. It helps you write to who your ideal target audience or audiences are. It helps make sure that you focus on some localized content, which is hugely important for local SEO. It challenges you and forces you to think through the process of what are the pain points that your ideal customers are having, what is motivating them to take action, what is, where are they at in their journey as they're traveling through trying to figure out something's going on. I can't figure out what the problem is. Maybe you can help them articulate it. If you're the one that helps them articulate it, then you're going to be golden in their eyes, especially if you have a solution for that. And so, guiding them through the journey, understanding their pain points every step of the way, writing content that speaks to that is really important. From a production perspective, a strategy is really important. A lot of people, yeah, Ian, I bet every time you talk with a potential customer, they're like, "Oh, well, we can write that content." Um,
Yep.
do they? Have
Nope.
they? Will they? No. No, things get in the way, and rightfully so. They probably have a lot more important things that they need to be working on. And if they wrote the content, it probably wouldn't be written for SEO optimization anyway. Well, SE optimization, I should say, search engine optimization. So, it gives you, a regular recurring set of themes or topics that you want to write to. When you look at it from a strategic perspective, Google has different classifications of, I don't want to get super technical. We'll let Paul do that. But Google has classifications of topics that, really resonate and have meta meanings that, if you just start writing, you're going to miss out on those. And if you miss out on those, you're missing SEO opportunity. So, how you're going to get the content distributed, what channels are you going to rely on to make that happen? All of that happens around strategy. And I think the thing that if a business is doing a good job of producing quality content for helping them rank and speaking to the problems that their ideal customers are having, one of the big fails that frequently happens is they don't have a consistent, clear call to action on strategic pieces of content to get people to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I want to talk to somebody," or "I want to schedule an appointment," or "I need to book a consultation," or "get a free estimate." You want to make sure that that's only going to happen by design. It's the easiest thing to forget. It's hard enough to create all this content. I guarantee you people are going to forget putting good quality calls to action when they're writing that content.
Yeah, and just to take a little bit of a step back, I didn't prepare you for this, Ken, but I think you'll be able to answer it pretty well. But what does creating a content strategy actually look like? What is there research? Do you like what would you do if a company needed a content strategy?
Yeah, I would look at do keyword research, obviously, and you want to look at search volumes. You want to try to start to understand what language and what keywords are starting to indicate buyer intent. I think that's hugely important. You can drive all the traffic you want to your website, but if people aren't converting, and you don't have language to make it easy for them to convert when they're ready to take action, you're missing the boat. Competitor research is huge. If you're trying to show up for local rankings, you need to know where you stand compared to your competition. How many Google reviews do they have? I mean, that's not content that necessarily is going to go on your website, but it positions you to figure out, what you need to do. Yeah, you're not going to waste a bunch of time chasing every possible permutation of everything. You're going to really focus in on the things that matter the most for your business to help you get your best customers. Not every customer is equal, and so you need to prioritize that. Competitor research, could you have to be careful with it because it's like, oh wow, they're outranking me for all of these keywords, and you may want to say, I need to do that. I need to try to leapfrog them and take over that. Challenge yourself. Is it the right keyword for the right ideal customer for the right problem that you solve and the way you solve it? I mean, those are just some of the things I would, I definitely would put together a keyword calendar. And it's a living, breathing thing. SEO, I think is best done when you triage it every month. You go in, you look at what's performing well, where are there content gaps, to help you rank for keywords, where do you need to add some content to a page, where do you need to combine pages. It's an ongoing process. It's only going to work and be effective when you're doing it aligned with a strategy.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking as well is just about measurement, right? If you don't plan something, you can't measure it. And one of the interesting things, even if we look at kind of a microcosm of content creation, this podcast is a great example, right? Where we try to focus on topics that we think are relevant to small business owners, from a marketing perspective. And we look at metrics to understand, wow, this topic really resonated with people, because we can look at viewership, duration of listens, all that kind of stuff. And so it's really helpful to us to say, hey, there seems to be a lot of interest in email marketing. Let's do some more deep dives on that topic. But
Yeah.
without the data, without measurement, you would never know that. And just like where you were talking about how a lot of small business owners think, well, I can write my own content. Of course you could, but you won't, right? Just like you said. And and even if you did, part of what we see is that, even when we're doing a marketing strategy or a content strategy for clients, they have ideas that they want to impose or put into the plan as well, and those are great. But the interesting conversation that we always have with clients is this about you, or is this about the client or your ideal audience, right? Because we as
Right.
business owners always have some interesting thoughts we'd like to share with the world. But if the audience, if your ideal customers don't care about that, you're really only doing it for yourself. And sure, there's value in that. It might make you feel better, but
Yeah.
your content plan should not be based on feelings. It should be based on data and who you're trying to attract.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but it's relevant, and I think that unfortunately, way too many times the marketing things that people choose to do are often driven by vanity instead of
Yep.
what is the best thing to do. And I know it's not a popular thing to say, but it's not about you, it's about your customer.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Paul, how does the quality of traffic to a website matter more than the quantity of the traffic in relation to content marketing?
You mean why or how?
How?
Well, quantity of traffic,
Oh my.
just because you have a lot of traffic, that doesn't mean they're going to convert. You know, we see this with with clients that they'll because you know people don't pay attention. They'll search for something and a website will come up, and this goes back to you know how the SEO, you know, search engine optimization, because someone searches for something, a result comes up, and they say, okay, this sounds like a good business to, or a good company to do business with, and they contact them, and they're in New Jersey and the business is in California, but they don't bother to look at the address or, you know, or the phone number, because they just fill out a form. And then then our client says, well, we're getting these leads from the other side of the country. It's like, well, we can't control what Google shows on search results. Okay. It's because they did a search for something and you popped up and they fill out the form on your website. We can't control that. But the quality of the traffic, they're more likely to convert into customers. It leads to higher engagement. And just because you get a lot of traffic, and that's one of those metrics that it's like bounce rate. If you don't look at it in context, it doesn't mean anything, because you get a lot of traffic. But if it's just someone searching, and this goes, you know, this also goes back to the content plan, that you have to have content for different stages of the buyer journey. If they're just looking for information, they're at the top of that funnel that we always talk about. Maybe they'll convert at some point, but if they're in the informational stage of their journey, so to speak, you have to have content that guides them through that journey. And that kind of goes back to what Ken says about having a content plan. You can't just throw stuff out there. You have to have a content plan, and that is going to increase the quality of the traffic, because having a lot of traffic from people that are never going to become customers doesn't really help you. You have to have content that is focused on your potential clients, so that you engage with them, so they engage with you. And that's what's going to lead to conversions. Just having a lot of traffic doesn't really mean anything. I don't know if that's exactly what you were looking for, but
no, it's great. One of the detours I think I want to take us and our listeners down on right now is, you know, you alluded to this, Paul, but when we look at creating content plans for clients, we look at the marketing hourglass. And so that's a framework that Duct Tape Marketing uses. But it's really powerful because it breaks down each phase or each stage of what a buyer needs to go through, as far as, do they know you, like you, trust you, try you in order to buy from you, and then repeat and refer, right? So each of those stages or phases requires certain content in order to inform, guide, and engage and promote that person in their thinking to the next stage. And so I just thought it would be helpful to open that up a little bit. And if you guys have some thoughts or want to expand on that idea a little bit, I think that's a really good spot for it in this discussion.
I think a lot of people, you know, superficially, when you don't really spend a lot of time thinking about it, you're going to be like, well, I need to show up for every keyword phrase that fits my business. And some of those are converting and some of them aren't. And, you know, so you may spend all of your time in the beginning putting content together just to help you be discovered, but have nothing for when somebody's ready to take action. And so when they do a search and they're ready to take action, they're not going to find your website because you don't rank for that. It's an easy trap to fall into. You know, it's like, I know Paul likes to say this: anybody with a checkbook or anybody with a pulse, you know, who's your ideal customer? You know, what areas or service areas do you want to, you know, have customers in? the entire metro area. It's like, okay, how much money do you have to spend? I mean, people just there are costs, and in order to look, marketing only works when it's targeted. And unless you have unlimited dollars, and I don't know of any small business that has unlimited dollars. If I do, you can reach us through this podcast. But anyway, I just, I think it's really important, as you said. You got to look at the stage of where people are at in the buyer's journey. You absolutely want to be found when people are starting to begin that journey, because you want to be there, but you have to be there to stay top of mind as they're going through the journey as well.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to your comment about search intent, right? Your search intent changes depending on how long the sales or decision, let's do it from the customer side, how long the decision process takes. Because for something like, remodeling your home, that's not usually a one-day search for your ideal customers, right? They're going to do some research. They're going to look for ideas. They're going to look at reviews. They're going to do a whole host of different things, but their intent changes throughout that process because they might not want to look at case studies right at the very beginning, but they will want to look at those probably at some point to understand, oh, okay, here's somebody that had a very similar challenge that we had, and these guys were able to solve it, and they were able to solve it well with professionalism and quality. And so I think that search intent is really important.
Yeah, something that I think businesses have to understand is that the more expensive the product or services that you're offering, the longer that sales cycle is, the more important this whole content for each stage of the buyer journey is. Because, like you said, if you're remodeling or you're looking at putting, fiber cement siding on it, these are tens of thousands of dollars. People aren't going to go online, say, hey, I want to remodel my kitchen, and boom, they're not going to do that. Like you said, they're going to do some research. And, this goes back to, we've had this conversation with clients before that they don't want to have how-to content, because they're like, well, I want them to call in and pay me to do this. It's like, look, this isn't 1950. This information is out there, and they're going to find it. And if they find it on your competitor's website, and then they do come to a point where, okay, this is something I really probably can't do or shouldn't do, well, they're not going to contact you. They're going to contact your competitor, because that's where they found the information. And also that, the keywords, let's say you're a roofer, all right, and you go in there and you type in roofing and you don't show up. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because maybe they're just looking for roofing shingles at Home Depot. Okay. That is a very broad keyword. And so you want to show up for like roofing contractor or roofing installation, but roofing is just way too broad.
Yeah. Great example.
Yeah. I've had a few B2B clients where this goes back to the comment, I think, Ken, where you said it's be careful of the vanity side of things, or only seeing your industry and your ideal clients through the lens of your own perception, rather than letting data drive you. I've had some B2B companies come to me for SEO help. And in that process, after we have discussions, we do onboarding, and then we do research. There's been a few where I've been so amazed that the business itself has decided they want to change the conversation in a way, and we'll talk about differentiation in a minute, but and differentiation is good. But what was really fascinating about these case studies was that they tried to they wanted to elevate how they were talking about the particular topic of the industry that they were in. But what they didn't realize was that gave them no SEO power whatsoever. They couldn't figure out why they weren't ranking. And it was because they had changed the verbiage of what their services were, because they wanted to say, hey, we don't live in this area. We live in this area, right? Way better. but nobody was searching for that because it was a term they made up, right? So
Yeah, right.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's where it becomes really important to make sure data drives your decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, less talking for Ian because he's coughing too much today. Ken, how does a strategic approach impact the tone and voice of content?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is I'm a huge StoryBrand fan. As StoryBrand
Me
guide
too.
have been for several years, and most people, unfortunately, most websites are written, as you just said, Ian, from the perspective of the business. That's absolutely wrong. I mean, there may be a time and a place. Your about page, maybe you have an opportunity to kind of talk a lot more about your business. Probably should, key people, things like that. But you got to realize your customer is the hero, and we're talking about a story framework. So the hero is somebody who is going to have a problem. Your customer has a problem. They're looking for a guide, which is a company, hopefully yours, if they find you, that can help them solve their problem. And they need to feel confident that you're not only do you address that and make it crystal clear, yeah, we get it. This is the problem that we solve for you. So you need to convey that throughout. It's really easy to fall into the trap of gobbledygook, using overly jargonistic language that means a lot to you, but means nothing to your ideal customers or clients or patients. Um, in some cases, I mean, look, let's just take retirement planning and versus 401k as an easy example. Some people are going to search for, I need help creating a retirement plan. In other cases, people know a specific product. So they're going to say, I need a 403B, or I need a 401k, or I need this, or I need a Roth IRA. They know the language. And so if you have a sophisticated set of clients who know that language, yeah, you want content for that. But if that's all the content that you have and you don't really talk about retirement planning and how you help guide people through the process of creating a retirement plan that fits their needs, and that's focused on them, not selling products that is best for the company that you or companies you might happen to represent, you're probably missing a lot of great opportunity. So you got to make it about the customer. You got to make it about the problems that you solve. You need to use language that demonstrates that you have the empathy, but also the authority to be able to help be that guide, to take them through their journey of transformation, because ultimately marketing is about transformation. They've got a problem state that they're in right now. They're trying to find a better state, and you need to understand the nuances of what better means for them. We've talked about this in the past. As a matter of fact, I keep it beside my desk. The elements of value pyramid is brilliant because, this is from the Harvard Business Review, written by the Bain Company, and it's been around since 2005. But it basically makes you think about, is my business aspirational? Is it something that's like, hey, I want to make my neighbors jealous, so I want to have the best lawn in the neighborhood? Is it existential, where it's really more like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic fundamental things that you need to do to survive? Is where does your product or service fall into that continuum? You got to be able to talk to that. And so I think it's, I just think it's critical. If you haven't done strategy, you're not going to be able to answer those questions very well and create the right content that's going to speak to the right audience, that's going to get the right traffic on your website, to convert and become paying customers. And ultimately, I think anybody who has a website, they probably have the website because they want customers. I'm just thinking, So yeah, I think you've got the opportunity to, then, speaking directly to somebody where they put themselves, when they read the language on your website, they're like, that's me. That's the problem I have. wow, okay, here's the way that I can get this resolved. Great. How do I contact these people? That's what you want to get to. You know, and unfortunately, I think most people, they write the website thinking about themselves and the language they use, and that's missing the target. So I don't know if that answers everything that you wanted, but you know, those are the things I care about.
Yeah, no, good job. One of the things also I think it's worth mentioning to our viewers, listeners, is that the content plans we're talking about and the audiences you have and the content you create for them is equally as relevant for hiring personnel and career stuff, right? As it is for attracting, engaging, and converting customers. If you want to create a steady stream of great people coming to your business looking to work with you, you have to have a plan, a content plan. You have to execute that content plan, and you have to understand who your ideal target audience is in those career choices, in those job roles, because where a lot of businesses uh, lose sight is they think, oh, we exist, we'll post an ad when it's time for us to hire somebody. But man, like if you want to attract the best of the best, you need to position yourself just like you do with the rest of your content in order to attract, engage, and convert great personnel.
Well, and not only for personnel, but strategic partners.
Right.
You know, I
Good
mean, a
point.
lot of businesses fail to have content on their website that speaks to strategic partners and why those other businesses might want to partner with your company. And yet that we know over and over and over again, that is one of the most cost-effective
Yep.
long-term marketing strategies that's out there. And also, if you're a nonprofit, you know, you got to think about the donors, you know, not just the people that you serve in your mission, but also what do you have on your content that motivates somebody to say, this is an organization that I'm going to support, I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to give money, you know, I'm going to advocate for. Yeah, all you have to think about it in a multi-dimensional way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Catch the vision, have a message that resonates with people, and invite them to engage, right? I think people forget that, you're trying to connect with people, not
Right.
as important as the data is, it's the people you're trying to connect with.
Yep.
So, Paul, what are some ways to find real differentiators for content and brand positioning for your business?
Well, it goes back to what you just said about who you're trying to connect with. You have to find out whatever your target audience is, your ideal client, and you have to establish that first. We talked about that in the last podcast, but what are their needs and pain points? We talk about this all the time. Your website is not about you. It's about your customers and what problem do you solve for them, and why should they pay you as opposed to a competitor. So I mean, market research, and you have to understand what your competitors are doing. You have to understand that competitive landscape. Talk to your current customers. Why did they decide to hire you as opposed to someone else? What made them make that decision? And what are your brand's core values? What do you offer that your competitors don't? And this goes back, we offer great customer service. Yeah, okay. Who's going to say we offer horrible customer service? Hey, hire us. Everybody's going to say that, but do you have reviews that prove that? Reviews can be a real differentiator, especially, a lot of small businesses and in the service area businesses, we call them, air conditioning, remodeling, things like that. A lot of them, they don't have a plan to get reviews, and they just kind of let it happen. And if you just let it happen, you're going to wind up getting more negative reviews than positive reviews. So if you have a system in place to ask for reviews and get reviews, that can be the tipping point. People say, okay, hey, this business has 500 4.8 star reviews. They must be a good company to work with. That will differentiate you. Case studies that show what you've done, how you solve, and that might not be appropriate for some small businesses, but anything that shows how you differentiate yourself from your competitor. Like I said, if you have reviews and your competitors don't, that's differentiator. Be a guest on a podcast and establish yourself as an authority in your industry. That can be a differentiator. Get involved with your local chamber. If your competitors aren't, a lot of times you see this, a lot of small businesses, they aren't members of their local chamber. And that can help you getting a link back to your website from a local chamber. And we don't think about, these are just little things, but all these little things add up.
Yeah. When we're doing what we call a total online presence audit or a strategy first blueprint, where we're developing the strategy for a client, one of the things we do is and this is always eye-opening for our clients, and you can do this in your office as well, for our listeners, is act as if you're just a prospective customer, right? Pull up your website.
That can be hard to do, though, because you have to get outside yourself, I mean, seriously.
I know, but if you do this, I think this helps. So pull up your own website, pull up your 3 top competitors' websites side by side, if you're able, and look at even just above the fold, right? Whatever shows up when you first land on the page or on the home pages, what is the core difference between all of those? And just list them out. And chances are you will see no core difference. We see this all the time when we do these audits, is that most businesses, so imagine a dentist, most dentists say the exact same thing. There's minor nuances, there's difference in photos, but if you're a prospective patient, everything looks the same, sounds the same. So what choice do they have, or what are they basing their choice on to select dentist A versus dentist C? And the same is true for roofers and plumbers, and like every single business. Just do this simple exercise to understand what the problem is, and that will help you understand the need for differentiation. Because if you're all vanilla, how on earth are you equipping prospective customers to choose you over the competition?
Yeah, and hopefully it's clear to where if you look at it for 5 seconds, you know exactly what the business is all about, the problem that they solve.
That's right. Donald Miller calls it the grunt test, right? You've shared that with us before. And can you just grunt out what this business is about within?
Yeah, those are 2 great exercises.
Yeah. So Ken, how can stories be used to differentiate content and create a stronger brand voice?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit about story in my last question that I answered. So again, I think on the homepage, the story has got to be about your customer. Marketing is about transformation. So you want to have stories of transformation. You want to have content on your website that helps people visualize, here's the problem I've had. Okay, great. They had this customer, they had this problem. They came in, they did this, that, the other, and now here's the experience that they have. And if you can write this up, like, we work with painters or, home remodelers, if you can describe the problem that somebody had, why did they want to have their house painted? What was motivating them to make that decision? Why did they decide to work with your business? How did you and your process and your team and your experience guide them to get them to the outcome that they wanted, which was, a transformed living space, and the more that you can describe that, and then you talk about, oh, and by the way, we did this for your neighbor, in the same suburb or the same city that you live in, that resonates. And people people are transported. They enter into your story that you're putting together. So, if you're a pharmaceutical company, you need to take people through that journey, through case studies. Okay, here's the client situation I'm dealing with. I'm trying to find a way to solve or help these patients that I'm working with. How is your drug, in this case, or treatment, going to help me get my patients to that end goal that they want? If you can get somebody to buy into that, and so it's going to be a little bit different type of content depending on the industry that you're in. Project based descriptions of before and after projects, for home remodelers, painters, roofers, whatever, that works great. If you're in a technical environment, a case study is probably typically more effective for people who are wanting to see the data that supports it. We talked, I think, last week about the origin story of a business. How did the business get started? What's the story of the founder? Those are important key people in the business, highlighting their stories. Why do they have a passion to do what they do and help solve the problems that they do for their customers? All of those are really important to do, because again, marketing is about transformation, and story is the way that we've communicated for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So the more that you can take people on that journey and get them to buy in and say, yeah, okay, this is me, or I get this situation, and they follow it through, it's going to communicate and it's going to stick. That's the important thing, is it's going to stick. And if it sticks, if they have to go off because they get a phone call, they have to go pick up their kid wherever, when they come back and they resume their journey of making a decision to make a purchase, stickiness is important. And so they're going to, anything that you can do to help remind people of who you are and the fact that you exist and that you can solve their problem, is going to get you ahead of your competition 9 times out of 10.
That's great. And Paul, this is a follow-up question where we're going to dig into this idea a little bit more, but how can businesses come up with these great stories for their content? Ken touched on a few ideas, but let's dig deeper into this.
We had talk to your customers, and talked about this before. Ask them why did they choose you over a competitor. Talk to your employees, because they're the ones that are interacting with customers, and they probably have ideas about why people interact with you or why people choose to do business with you. And I talked about reviews, but encourage your customers to give you referrals and testimonials, because if we talked about this in the past, that a lot of people, they're willing to give referrals or reviews or testimonials, but people are busy. You have to ask them, and you have to have a system in place to do that. And talk to your other businesses that if you're a real estate agent, you do business with all kinds of other businesses, interior designers, talk to your network about, why do they refer you as opposed to someone else? And all these things can help you create content and build stories around them. I'm not a content writer, so this probably wasn't the best question for me, but Ken said something about we've used stories to convey ideas and for thousands of years. And this may come as a shock to people under 30, but the internet hasn't been around that long. We have, he's right. They used to sit around their little campfire and talk. That's what they did. They talked, they communicated through stories, and that, written language hasn't been around for most of our existence. And they they used verbal stories, and then they started writing these things down, and stories are very powerful. So you just like talk to your customers, talk to your employees, talk to your referral network, and that will give you some really good ideas to come up with this content. And then you build the stories around them. That's where you need a good content writer.
And we talked earlier, Ian, I think you brought it up about the B2B challenges sometimes is, look, the best position to be in is in a blue ocean space. If you can create a blue ocean space and you can own it and dominate it, as long as it's something that people want, just think about HubSpot and what they did with inbound marketing. Nobody knew that term, and now it's a term that anybody in the world of digital marketing uses, and probably more than half of our listeners and small business owners probably have heard that term and have a decent idea of what it means.
And what does blue ocean mean, Ken? Just define that for some of our listeners.
So blue ocean just means that you're in a space where there's not competition, and it's wide open, and you have the opportunity because you're the only player in that space, or the most significant player in that space. You typically, it's something that you may have to define and own, but it creates a lot of challenges as well. But it can be incredibly lucrative. It requires a lot of content, because what you mentioned before, you may have this vision, you may have this solution that answers a problem that nobody is thinking about, but it's a very real problem. You're going to have to create a lot of content to help get people there. They're not just going to go there. They have to understand. It's like, oh my God, that's my problem. That's why I haven't been able to get over this hurdle or, deal with this situation. When you can get people to the point where they get that, and you're the only competitor in the space, you're gonna rank well, but you're not gonna get a lot of traffic because nobody knows to search for it or think about it. So yeah, I think it's not for every business. Not every business needs to be a trailblazer. As a matter of fact, most businesses shouldn't be a trailblazer. You just need to be crystal clear in how you solve the problem for the most important customers that you want to do business with.
Yeah, and if you want to go down that path, keep in mind that, like Ken, you said, you're going to have to develop a lot of content, because people can't search for something they don't know exists.
Yeah.
So
But what's interesting, when you look at the search behaviors of what's going on, I forget the numbers, but there are literally thousands, maybe even millions of new searches every month that have never been searched before.
Oh yeah, I forget the statistic too, but Google came out a while back with there's how many thousands of new, and it's incredible when you think about it. And I don't know how they define it, but how many thousands of searches every day,
right,
that have never been done. Brand new searches, brand new search terms.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that occurred to me too while you guys were talking was when we talk about stories and we talk about things like case studies or transformation, where we're trying to show transformation in where someone was at and what you as a business can do for them, don't forget to include feelings in that, because how long does it take to make a decision? The actual decision is a nanosecond, right? Once you've provided all of the information you need in order to make the decision, and oftentimes we procrastinate as people, but truthfully, when we're motivated, we make that decision fast. And so we want to help people understand, look, this is where, customer A was. This was the feelings they had, because even examples as technical as, companies that come to us that need help with their SEO because they're not ranking well enough.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a very tangible side to that where they know it will help their business. So they want the tangible results. But truthfully, most of the time, the person calling us is calling because they feel like they are not successful because their competitors, who they know they're better than in their own minds, are out competing them in search engine results. And they think that's a travesty to the people that they could serve, right? So sometimes it's as simple as, yes, you need to provide the data that's going to help their logical mind make the decision, but oftentimes it's the transformation of feelings that can really help move people, because we want people to, think about, I'm going to use dentists as an example again. Think about the internal dialogue that people have when they have bad teeth, right? And then think of the internal dialogue when they have good teeth. And it's transformational in the feelings that they're able to feel about themselves. So is there something highly technical like a dental implant procedure? Absolutely. Do you want to be perceived as the expert if you're the dentist? Absolutely. But it's the transformation of the feeling, having greater ability to be themselves out in public, that is truly what they're after. They're not after, the perfect dental implant, although they want it to look good. They want to feel great about themselves.
Yeah. Great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Ian. I had completely overlooked that when I was talking about, problems. I love StoryBrand again because it breaks it down really easily. There are external, internal, and philosophical problems.
Right.
External problem is, I don't like my smile. The internal problem is how that makes them feel. What behaviors does it change in them? And then the philosophical is, it's 2023. Everybody should have the opportunity to have a great smile, kind of a stuff. And it could be pain-free dentistry. It's like, oh my God, I'm so scared to go to the dentist. Here's the fact, folks. People make the buying decision because if they see that you solve their internal problem, they're going to find you maybe because of the external problem, because that's probably what they're starting their search around. But then when they land on your page and they see that you speak to their internal problem, that's motivating, and that's conversion activity right there.
Yeah. The emotional side often is what makes the true decision as much as the logic side.
Yeah.
We make decisions based on emotion, not logic, whether anyone likes that or not. And, it's, Ian, like you said, the decision itself might be instantaneous. It's that convoluted journey that people go on to get to that decision that's where all this strategy and content comes in.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Ken, why is it important to have a website and not rely solely on social media for content distribution? We hear that all the time, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've said it before. I think Mark Fortune, who was involved in this podcast a long time ago, I know he says this all the time: don't build on rented land. Your website is really the asset that you own online. If you're relying on your Google Business Profile, look, it's a critically important component. I'm not saying don't do it, but don't only do it. You've got to have your website. And also, you can't do justice to your Google Business Profile without a quality website anyway. Look at what has happened in Twitter in the last year. It used to be that Twitter was great because it was so discoverable. And that discoverability, Elon Musk shut that down. And so now people who used to rely on getting information out through the web, beyond just the search engine optimization types of things, that went away, and so they've had to look for other alternatives. And so, now we see Threads pop up from Meta, to kind of fill that space and see if it can come in and be a player. And, it's now the fastest growing app that's ever happened. So you don't control what other businesses do. And your website is the one thing that you can control. And you can control your messaging. You can control the design and the branding. You can control the information that that you want to convey and put out to the world. Now that's not to say that you don't run risks. I mean, your website can be hacked, so you need to have precautions to take care of that. You need to have a quality hosting plan. You may accidentally go in and blow up a page or delete 2 or 3 or 4 pages, or maybe your entire website. You got to be able to restore it. But if you do it right, and you own and control that asset, or you're working with a marketing solution provider that's guiding you through that process to help you make sure that you own and control that asset yourself. Social media can change, and it's, for businesses these days, it's become so hard to be visible on social media. And yeah, there's always going to be you go to any given, conference, and somebody's going to say, oh yeah, I'm killing it on social media, that's all I do. Great. Maybe they're a social media native and maybe they're just exceptional at it. As long as the game doesn't change on them, they're going to be okay. That's maybe what, 5%, maybe 3%, maybe even 1% of people who get that benefit as a small business from social media. Not saying don't ignore social media. It's a prerequisite. It's part of the game, but you don't own it. You don't control it. You have no idea when they're going to change your algorithm. The same is true with your website. I mean, you never know what Google's going to do in regard to an algorithm change. But historically, there are definitely going to be blips. There are going to be updates that happen, in the algorithms for the search engines that are going to drop your rankings. But if you're doing the right things with the way you run and control your website, the content that you have, the writing it for humans, speaking to humans, focusing on user experience, all of the EEAT stuff that we've talked about in the past, that blip is going to right itself sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, there may be a dip. You need to be prepared to ride out some of those storms, and kind of level that out as best as you can. But if you're relying on somebody else and the system that they provide, you're at the mercy of what they're doing. And we've talked about it again. I think a lot of people, they tend to want to go as cheap as they can for a website because there's a lot of cheap options out there. And it's like, I would just challenge everybody who is watching or listening this. If you have a place of business that you expect people to go to, are you going to be cheap and chintzy with that? Or are you going to have it be the representation of the business that you really truly want to have, and you make the investment? You may not like the fact that you have to spend that much money on rent and decor and facilities and all that kind of stuff, but you want it to represent your business in the best possible way, right? Well, why the hell wouldn't you want to do that same thing with your website? And why wouldn't you want to make that same level of investment with your website and all of the things that your website can bring in terms of findability and conversion factors? You don't own or control conversion on any of these other platforms. You are absolutely at the mercy of what happens there. The conversions happen on your website.
Yeah, your anecdote about people sharing anecdotal stories about how they're killing it in this or that. My comment to prospects or clients or whoever it is who's hearing this: probe, ask questions, ask for data, because I can't tell you the number of times that I've recommended that to people, to go back to the person that they've talked to. Hey, I'm killing it on this platform. I've got this many views on YouTube. I've got this many followers. How much sales have they gotten from that? The answer is almost always zero or like negligible. And here's just a quick story. A business that I was close to, a friend, they decided to do this really cool, innovative video on YouTube. They were they just felt so good about this because they were getting, excuse me, thousands of of views on that video. But they're a business. And so I asked them, like, how many customers have you actually gotten from this video? And they said, well, none. I'm like that totally is what you were talking about earlier, Ken, where it's a vanity, excuse me, a vanity metric. And the data is what should be driving the decisions. So if somebody says they're killing it, they're knocking it out of the park, ask them for some real data, like how many customers or how many true leads, qualified leads have you gotten? Because quite frankly, on social media, most of the metrics, and we've talked about this before, most of the metrics are vanity metrics. The number of followers you have doesn't mean a single thing if none of those people are your ideal clients in your geography that are prospective buyers.
The other thing I would say is, also challenge them to see if you can replicate their process, because some people may just be really good at connecting with people on social media, and they may just be really natural to where people are like, oh yeah, that's really cool, I'm going to share that to my friends and family on whatever platform I'm on as well. Is that something that you can do? I mean, do you have that personality? Do you have that network that you've already built? Can you even build that kind of a network? Are you inclined to make that kind of content and do it yourself? The answer is almost always no. I mean, there will always be a handful of people who can leverage a platform and it is their primary source of business. More power to them, but it's not scalable or replicable for most small businesses out there.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, guys, on how strategy is content's best friend?
Go for it, Paul.
Well, I don't know if this is really related to that question, but some of the things Ken was talking about with your website and your physical location, and most of the reasons you want to go with a quality hosting plan are technical, so I won't get into that. But as far as when Ken said, if you spend all this money on a physical location, why wouldn't you spend money on your website? We live in a digital world, whether anyone likes that or not. And there are some people that don't like that. But even if you have a physical location, people are going to do their research online and they're going to go to your website before they ever walk into your business. Yep. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And what tells us that? The data, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, even if your business is referral driven, word of mouth, ask the people that are finding you, did you go look at my website? And they will almost always say yes. Or did you go read the reviews on Google or Yelp or Home Advisor or Zillow or ZocDocs or whatever? There needs to be more than just that word of mouth. People, people, they own the journey. They own their journey now.
Yep. Yeah. What's interesting about that too is because we do tracking of calls and form completions, right? And then clients report back to us about their revenue and the number of new clients or patients they've gotten in the last month. Like the number of clients, customers, patients that businesses earn today that do not come through some form of the digital journey is so small, it's negligible, right? Like almost everybody comes in some form through the website, through ads, through, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great place to wrap up, guys. Thank you, Ken and Paul, for sharing your thoughts on this topic. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. I hope you found this topic valuable. If so, please share with other business owners so that we can help expand our tribe. And until next week, keep calm and market on.